Yo, what's going on? Bardown Breakdown, episode 104. And I did it last episode, so I'm going to do another hockey pun. So you are Marty McSorley mistaken if you haven't heard of A Loss for Words. And we got the homie Maddie from A Loss for Words. Or I guess I should say formerly of A Loss for Words, because are you guys like...
We're still like obviously I live with Mikey.
So you're still like doing it. You're doing the damn thing.
We're not actively a full-time touring band.
All right, hey, that's fine though.
Yeah.
But we're stoked to have you on, and we're also stoked to find out what you're actually cooking for dinner in the background. So what do you got going on in that pot?
Yeah, so me and my girl Steph, we just went to the supermarket and hit the Asian market and got a bunch of stuff. And at the Asian market, I was like, yo, fuck it, I'm just gonna get a hot pot and
sick. Okay.
A hot pot and a Korean barbecue
thing.
So I just got that, and then we just bought a bunch of stuff. And Mikey, who also plays in A Loss for Words, is my roommate, and he is really good with making amazing food. So sick. He is being a good friend and chopping all that shit up. So once we get done here, we can all feast together.
Yeah, hot pot is really good. I don't know. Have you ever had hot pot, Mikey? Have you ever done hot pot before?
I don't think so.
So there's a really good spot, like probably 15 minutes away from my house, and me, my fiance, my sister-in-law, and her fiance went a couple months back, and it's a super interesting experience, because really what you're doing is you're just taking everything raw and just like putting it in broth and essentially letting it like simmer. But the cool thing that happens is, like, the more you put in this broth, the more the broth absorbs the flavor of what you put in it. So like when we were at this spot, they had like all these different like really like thinly sliced meats you could put in there, all different types of like vegetarian stuff, like like tofu and seitan and that kind of stuff, but like a bunch of veggies too. So the whole idea is like you kind of veggies take longer to cook than like really thin meat. So you just put your veggies in there first, then you put all your meats in there.
Tom, you're describing a soup. That is
I mean, yeah, I guess you'd call it that, but it's like it's better than that though.
Yeah, it's awesome, because obviously and then obviously the broth already has a bunch of different spices and things in it. So like it's like you basically building your own soup, more or less.
Yeah.
But I'm excited because this will be the first time that we've ever done it at home. I've done it at like some of my homies' houses and stuff, but me and my house, us doing it together, like this is our first time. So we'll let you know how it goes.
All right. Love to hear it. So let's just jump right into it. So this past year, I guess you can call it a 10th anniversary. Pure Noise finally put out your Motown on vinyl for the first time, right? So super cool to kind of see that pop back up, because I remember listening to that a lot when you guys first put it out back, 10 years ago at this point. Yeah, there it is, man. That's what's up. Yeah. So so I've always been really super interested to know about that. So of the band, like were all of you guys, big into like, kind of 60s Motown stuff, or was it just a small contingent of you guys? And like, how was the process of taking all these old songs and kind of turning them into like punk rock songs? What was that all about?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess essentially, we all, obviously our, music interests are very versatile. Mm-hmm. We're all very open-minded in like all sorts of different music. And some people like certain genres more than the other, but collectively, I think we cover every part of the spectrum. Cool. Me, Mikey, and Marky specifically are huge like old R&B and Motown fans.
Awesome.
Basically, I think we were always like bummed out, and it's funny because now I'm like friends with the owner of the label and everything. But Fearless Records used to do the Pop Goes Punk thing.
Yeah.
And it all stemmed from years ago. We were like bummed. We had a Boyz II Men cover that we did, that we submitted to get on it, and you didn't get picked for it. And I think it was more so the politics of music than actually the song not sounding good enough. So we kind of were like, a few years later, we're kind of like, let's do like fucking like a bunch of Motown covers, because I think we would nail it. And obviously, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. There's other artists that have done stuff similar, but we were like, we've never seen anybody do like a straight up like Motown record. And like, I'm very influenced by like R&B and soul. So like, I was like, this is a cool way to showcase my voice doing these legendary songs.
Yeah.
So the boys in the band were super stoked on it, and we recorded with our friend Chris Curran, and we did it, and yeah, it was dope. I was super stoked on it, and I don't really think anybody other than like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes has done anything like Motown themed.
Not that I could think of. Yeah.
So it was cool, and I think that like it was kind of also something that kind of separated us and set us aside from other artists that we were touring with and friends with, because they didn't really have like this side of them, like the R&B soul influence. So I think that really showcased it. Yeah, no, it was dope, and I'm glad that Pure Noise and Jake were cool enough to release it again for the 10th anniversary. That was cool.
Yeah. So like when you guys were kind of like out there touring, you had what was it, the Kids Can't Lose, right? That was like the first real kind of record, and then you put out this Motown record. So like when you were touring, before you guys ended up doing No Sanctuary, like were the Motown songs heavy in the rotation, like when you guys were out there touring?
So basically, we had some EPs in the past and whatever. But I guess like the main thing that started getting us, really going, and getting some buzz in the community was The Kids Can't Lose, and then we followed that up with the Motown cover record. So I actually think that the UK, our friend JD, he works for a company called Slam Dunk Festival over in the UK.
Sure.
One of I know me and Mikey's favorite festivals, but he used to DJ all these club nights after shows and this and that. They have a really cool scene. They were doing like emo nights before emo nights existed. Do you get what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like Slim was the original thing. Like they would do like club nights and have kids come and like hang out and party and all that shit. So they gave it a lot of attention. The song I Want You Back with Alan and Dan from 4 Year Strong.
Sure. Yeah.
Song fucking hit real high, and like it's really crazy. We had a lot of streams on that song, but our old label Paper and Plastic had taken it down. There's stuff I don't want to get into, but they had taken down the record. But I mean, that song had a couple million views on Spotify, right? Yeah. So I mean, like it was definitely a bum out. Yeah. When we had our differences or whatever, and the song got taken down, so we lost a lot of traction, I guess you could say. Traction,
yeah. But it's kind of cool to think that like normally when when bands are going out on tour, it's like you're especially when you're kind of first starting to get like your feet wet and going national tours and stuff, most people are playing like their sets are like every song that they have. It's like it's like we got to fill 30 minutes and we got to play every song that we know. And here you guys are like with a full record, a couple of EPs, and you're like, oh, by the way, like let's just pepper this Jackson 5 song in because it's dope, or like. So I think that's super cool. But I remember seeing you guys like on Long Island around that time, and just thinking how super cool it was to be able to catch you guys playing that those kind of jams. So now when you guys like fresh off of doing this Motown record, you guys end up signing with Rise, and you end up putting out No Sanctuary. So I know, not to get too bad and too deep into the bad blood. I know you guys kind of had a falling out with Paper and Plastic, but I'm sure you guys had probably at that time were garnering a lot of attention, and Rise was like, especially around that time, like 2011, 2012. I mean, like they were signing up all of like the great pop punk around that time. So, what influenced you to go with Rise? Was it that pedigree, or was it just like the kind of attention they were giving you and the kind of vibe they were giving you, versus what you guys had experienced with Paper and Plastic?
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, I guess what happened is that Dave Shapiro, who owned Velocity Records, which was a subsidiary of Rise, Dave had been booking the Wonder Years, who we were super close with, and Soupy and a couple other people have been like hyping us up to Shapiro, because Shapiro's fucking big player in this game, and a fucking solid dude. Now he's one of my really solid friends, but at the time it was someone like, oh my god, if we could work with Dave Shapiro, that would be the biggest thing. One of those situations, and Shapiro came out to see us when we were playing with the Wonder Years. It was like, I think it was us, the Wonder Years, this band called the Sheds, maybe Such Gold, or whoever, and Dave came out to see us, and after the show was like, yo, what's your what's the scoop? We had kind of been talking and all that, but
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, I would love to sign you guys. And it was a huge opportunity for us. So that's how then, they're part of the Rise family. So like we were the first pop punk band that Velocity signed because it was like Issues, Woe Was Me, that whole scene. But yeah, man, it was a great run. I still do work on the management side of things with Sean Haydorn from Rise. I still do work with Dave Hero on the Velocity side. So I'm still connected with those dudes, so I'm it's been a great ride.
Yeah, isn't I just read that Velocity is like coming back as like an imprint of
Equal Vision
or like Equal Vision, right?
Yep. So actually,
that's sick.
Just I started working with them on a project called The Villa. Speaking of Issues, which is Michael Bowen from Issues, his new group, and it's like members of Nightmares, Secrets, Woe Was Me, kind of a lot of bands and Velocity bands and whatever. We actually signed to Velocity under EVR, so I'm super fucking excited to like get that project going. Awesome. But yeah, stoked for Dave because they have a lot of the staff from Rise Records there. They have Shapiro and Tim Bohr and Matt Anderson from Sound Talent are running Velocity, and EVR, legendary label for me as a hardcore fan with Shelter and 108 and Bane and all those. And I'm gonna let my dog go through the game real quick because he's chirping.
No, you're good, man. Don't worry about it.
That's what I had to do. Rufio was scratching at the door because we're getting a crazy storm right now, and he loses his cool.
I don't know if he can chop that up or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a powerhouse of a label. So yeah, super excited and blessed to have the opportunity to continue working with them after 11 years later.
So since you brought it up, we'll kind of go back in time. You coming up as like a youngster. So Boston hardcore is just like one of the most like kind of important places where that genre exploded. I think of Bane, American Nightmare, like all those bands, and it's just like, so here you are as like a hardcore, like a hardcore kid essentially growing up. Just because I don't know like your etymology, were you, before you did A Loss for Words, like were you ever in hardcore bands or like how did that work for you?
It's funny because A Loss for Words really was my only band ever. It's funny when I talk to people, they're like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, like literally that was my band for like my existence of music career. But yeah, I mean, we all kind of grew up, like all of us are a little different. Like, Marky kind of came from the punk scene. Marky's like super heavy into like a lot of the Fat Records, that world.
Sure.
Mikey kind of the same thing, like kind of grew up in like the punk scene as well. Nevada grew up in the punk scene. I kind of grew up in like the punk hardcore scene. That's kind of where we got to start. But obviously, listening to other kind of musics, and I actually got more into like, the Saves the Days and like you found Alkaline Trios first.
Yeah. Okay.
But then hanging out with different homies and stuff, they started to introduce me to like Bane and Converge.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Suicide File, American Nightmare.
Yeah.
And then, we ended up kind of growing up. A Lost for Words we signed to a basically all hardcore label called Rock Vegas Records, which was a fucking super, legit underground hardcore community, like, Khan of Arabia, Shere Khan, Cutthroat, Alpha and Omega, a bunch of these bands. And we grew up playing with all these artists, which was pretty different than most bands in our genre. We were actually playing these fucking wild ass shows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we were like, the hardcore scene played a massive role in our career.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in that 2010, call it, like pop punk revival, right? Or at least like getting away from all that like neon shit, right? It's just like a lot of the bands, you guys included.
I like it too. I saw you laugh as well. That was good. Away from that neon bullshit. That was great.
But for like you guys included, and like you think about like Title Fight and like Such Gold and like all these bands that were kind of towing the line, but like I said, like pop punk bands, but they had such a like a crossover with the hardcore community. The story so far as well, like you think of, the Story So Far putting out that split with Stick to Your Guns, and like, like you guys being on like shows with like hardcore bands, and like Title Fight being on shows with hardcore bands, and the fact that the hardcore community was so accepting of all of this like easy core quote unquote music or whatever you want to call it. I thought was such a great thing, because like everything was so divided when I got into like this kind of music, like in like the kind of like late 90s. It was like, okay, well, you liked punk, so like you could only listen to NoFX and Lagwagon, and like, yeah, maybe you could have listened to Can't Slow Down Saves the Day, but like Stay What You Are Saves the Day. Like, no, like, that's too far out there. And then like, but it was the same thing. It was like, oh, like, yeah, you could listen to like Poison the Well and Hopes Fall, and like that's that like,
great my friend, bring me back in time.
But it's like, you could listen to metalcore, but like, all of a sudden, if like you're putting on some more like hardcore punk stuff, like Bane or the Casualties, it's like all of a sudden it's like, well, you're mixing your genres and stuff. But I feel like this era of music,
there's definitely a weird hierarchy, like that makes some things okay to blend with each other. Some kids and some kids don't. But like, it's really weird. Like, it's, obviously Save the Day and Bane had a great friendship and a great, they toured together. They played shows together. Save the Day played the last show, Bane's last show in Boston, fucking legendary show. Mm-hmm. But like, like we played with Ramallah in Boston. We played with Death Threat. We played with Reach the Sky. A little bit more on the pop punk side of hardcore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reach the Sky is a fucking hardcore band, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like, it's cool, but like we grew up, and I think a big role of that was who our friends were. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the people that we grew up like, Colin of Arabia and Death for Dishonor, like those dudes who are our friends outside of music, they made for Lost Wars to come in and play. We had a respect from like the elders. Mm-hmm. Like these guys are with us, they're cool, and people like us for who we are. But also, I think the older, like the younger hardcore kids, seeing the older dudes stand on stage when we played and stuff, gave that like perception, like, okay, like I'm gonna check this out. Yeah. And like maybe some people didn't really dig it, but we never had no fucking problems ever. In the hardcore punk scene, people knew that we had respect. We're like, yo, hey guys, we're fucking stoked to be here. We don't play hardcore music, but we fucking respect the community. We hope I dig our music. Yeah. We're gonna be up in 30 minutes. Thank you so much. Boom, we play, and people would kind of be like, okay. And then, like, a year later, we have kids fucking running and smashing each other to like approval and stuff. You know what I mean? So, it was cool, man. And we really are blessed and appreciative of that acceptance that our friends created for us, and we never like took it for granted, because it like, you know what I mean? It's like to be with the cool kids of the Misfits. If that's what it made, like hardcore is like they're the best. Like hardcore made my like the best friendships I've ever made. And I hang out with the coolest dudes ever, but we're all from the Misfit category, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Definitely. Now, I guess you dropped it earlier, and I kind of just want to bring it up, playing Slam Dunk Fest back in 2019. So, like, what brought that show to life, and, like, you guys going over to across a pond to go and play that?
Yeah, so basically in 2009 or 2010 was the first time we ever, 2009 I think was the first time we ever toured out of country, which was in Japan. And that was before we were on a label. That was totally through our friend Mizuki from Ice Grills. He fucking does it. He's the guy over there. He's my brother. So, I mean, more or less, we toured Slam Dunk, I think, after that. JD from Slam Dunk also helped us come over there and tour before we had a record label or booking agent or anything. So we had a very special relationship with JD, Ben Ray, and Slam Dunk Festival from the jump. So fast forward, 2015 is our, the end of our full-time career. 2019 was the 10-year anniversary of The Kids Can't Lose, which was, the record that got us started, and as far as like the big leagues go, so that they were like, we hit them up, we're like, yo, 10-year anniversary, you guys down to have us? And they're like, absolutely, paid for our flights and all that shit and got us over there, and nice. And it was cool, man. It was like, it feels good, and like, you know, that were like, yeah, we're not a full-time touring band. Yeah, we're not going to draw a million kids, but we still packed the motherfucking place, and kids were singing along. Well, not kids, adults were singing along.
Yeah, right. Yeah, now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it was cool to know, like, yo, like, we still have people that fuck with us, like, and like, obviously, it's cool to know that we made some sort of an impact, that people, you know, in their mid-20s, their early 30s, like, are like, I'm gonna go get a beer and sing along with my friends with Lost Words. Like, to me, I don't give a fuck that we never made $1 million. We barely made any money at all, to be honest. But like, that to me is success. Like having people, even like people like you guys hit me up to do, you know, a podcast, or whatever. Like, it's cool that we made some kind of impact, that people want to fucking hear what my dumbass has to say. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's, you know, credit where credit's due, right? I mean, like, you know, a band, like a super talented band like the Wonder Years, right? Like, great music, like great guys, but like, if it wasn't for the crop of bands coming up all at the same time, like, would they ever have gone the distance that they did? And I think that, you know, you guys and Such Gold and Transit and, you know, Polar Bear Club and like all these bands that like kind of came up at the same time to flesh out this, you know, this revival of pop punk, paved the way for some of these bands to like kind of break out and end up being as successful as they were. Yeah, for sure.
I never thought of it like that, but that's a cool way. I mean, I definitely think that, you know, we were all working together. Like, that was the cool thing about our peers, is I really did feel, and I still feel, I'm still friends with all these guys.
Yeah.
That I toured with. Maybe I don't talk to them as much as I used to, but I could call any of them right now and we're going to have a hour conversation and laugh. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But like, I really do think that we had a community. We're all rooting for each other and tried to help each other. Like the like, you know, set your goals, the Wonder Years and 4 Years Strong.
Yeah.
Specifically, I would say help the Lost Words so much, because as we, like, us in the Wonder Years, at one point we're doing a co-headliner, and it was right before Upsides was coming out, and they were blowing up, and like, it was cool because we were supposed to be rotating every night, but obviously you could tell by the crowds, like, they were taking off. And like, it wasn't weird. They were like, yo, if you guys want, we can, you know, we have no problem. We'll still, you know, make the same money and whatever. Because, you know, and we had really small guarantees at the time. So like,
sure, of course.
But they're like, yo, we'll play last and stuff. You know, we just make sure you guys have the best shows you can and da-da-da. And like, I didn't even take it as disrespect. It was like, so like, that was really cool that they were like, yo, you know what I mean? It was like really cool. And as time went on after that tour, we formed such a bond, because we were pretty much there as they were like fucking blowing up. Like, we were seeing it happen every day. More kids singing along to them. You know, and as they got bigger, you know, same with 4 Years Strong, same with Set Your Goals, they kept taking us on tours. And that's kind of how we got our deals, because all these agents and labels were like, this fucking band won't go away. Like, these guys are like, and now they're on all these tours, like, because the opening slot, you know, people are fighting for those opening slots, and we were getting them because, like, now Lost Words has been doing this for a long time. They're a good band. They're good dudes. They're coming out. And I think it got to the point where Shapiro was like, all right, if these guys were on my tours anyways, then I might as well fucking, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of, you know, so I respect and appreciate all of our peers and all the bands that we, that helped us along the way, you know?
Absolutely. So I guess kind of to piggyback off of that and that friendship, you know, you go out on that Glamour Kills tour, and all of you guys end up covering each other's songs. So tell me about that, and like how you.
In my collection right next to me, but I don't know if I could pull it out that quick because the Motown one's a new one. But yeah, the Glamour Kills tour was cool. Glamour's Kid, like, you know, Mark from Glamour Kills and their whole crew. We had a great relationship with them, as well as the Wonder Years, who had a big part on picking, you know, the lineup as well. And I think they did a great job. I mean, Into It Over It and us split the opening slot. Story So Far was obviously fucking on the rise. I think they opened the tour, and us and Into It Over played the second slot, I'm pretty sure. But Story So Far was way bigger than us at that time. And it was funny just because we've toured with them so many times that, like younger, they were like, you know, it was fucking beautiful just watching them like evolve. And like, I mean, they could have had their own headline tour at that time. Like, they were like that big. It was like, you know, the Wonder Years were obviously the headliner and they, you know, doing their thing, but arguably Story So Far was could have been the co-headliner. You know what I mean? Just as far as the fans go. But obviously, you know, us Transit and Polar Bear Club are all having a blast and doing our thing. It's just Story So Far was the fucking, they were just, there's always that band. Every like year or two, there's that band that it's just undeniable. They caught the buzz, however it happens, whoever pressed the cool guy button or whatever.
Yeah. But like at that time, they must have been like what, like 17 or 18, like if that, like they were like babies, right?
I remember, I don't remember why Ryan couldn't go on tour, but the drummer of Story So Far couldn't go on tour, and I remember they had a dude named Cam on that was filling in for him, and he was like 16.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like crazy shit. Yeah, props to those dudes. I still keep in touch with Will and Parker, and I actually stayed with Kellen down in Austin when I was there.
Well, yeah, nice. Tell that asshole to get on our podcast, man. He's a huge Sharks fan, and
oh yeah, that's true. He is a big Sharks fan. That's right. I mean, I'm a Bruins guy, obviously, as you know, but no.
Yeah. So you know, that's a good a time as any to talk about. So that split you put out with Such Gold, you know, yep. Thomas versus Luongo's on there. You know, great title for a song, fantastic. You know, so being a Bruins fan, you know, you've had kind of a lot of ups and downs over the time. I mean, you've over the past couple of years, you've put together a tremendously competitive team. So what, you know, growing up in Boston, what was your relationship like kind of as a young kid coming up? You know, were you a hockey fan when you were younger? Were you always going to Bruins games? Like how was that when you were coming up?
Yeah. So, I mean, my family is a hockey family for sure. My mom's, okay. my mom's like cousins and stuff. Some of them played semi-pro. Some of like one of my cousins actually played with Jeremy Roenick back in the day. Who's very, you know, he's from Massachusetts and also, you know, played for the Blackhawks and had an incredible career. So I always grew up. So I personally played basketball. You know, I'm wearing my Celtics, you know, jams right now, but I played football and basketball. I was decent at basketball, sucked at football, but I played because all the homies were playing and stuff. But I definitely knew I wasn't having a professional football career by all means. But I liked hockey. But because basketball and hockey are same season sports in high school, I was a massive basketball fan. But I loved hockey, and as time went on, I think I kind of got more into hockey as far as like watching and being a fan and going to Bruins games and stuff. But yeah, I mean, sports were always a big part of my life. So, you know, I'm very, you know, diverse. I love sports. I love skateboarding. Oh, I loved skateboarding back in the day, even though I sucked at that too. I love music. So like, you know, I was like kind of like a jock, punk rock, skater. I had no identity, really, I guess you could say.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Jack of all trades.
I'm still figuring out what the fuck I am.
So, did you have like a favorite brewing growing up? What was it, like the traditional Ray Bork or?
I mean, I guess obviously, like, you know, I was growing up around the time like Cam Neely, Ray Bork. You know, that was kind of the era that I actually got a picture with Cam Neely, which was dope.
That's awesome.
Our friend Jeremy Russell, who passed away years ago. We had a song actually named after from JMR, but we do a golf tournament from every year that his family and one of our good friends, Libby, put on. And Cam Neely's foundation thing or whatever was playing after ours, and he was there having some drinks and shit. And I have a Bruins kneecap. And he came up to me and was like, yo, that's fucking sick. And I was like, oh, like, you know, it's dope. And I was like, I remember, it's really weird. It sounds crazy, but me and my boy Judge were there and having a beer, and he's like, yo, you mind if I get a picture to show my son? He loves tattoos. So I'm like, that's so fucking weird, because I've honestly never really asked people for pictures, and I was going to ask him 100%. I was like, this is my, you know, this is cool. And he asked me and made it so less awkward. And I'm like, it's really funny because there's a picture and it's us smiling and he's pointing at my tattoo. And it's just like, and I don't know, it was just so funny because me and Judd were going to ask him for a picture, but he saved us the awkwardness, and he just, you know, it was pretty surreal. But that, I have that picture framed at my parents' house, but that's a dope memory.
Yeah.
Now, Tom and I unfortunately never experienced this, but you got those cups. So what was that like to experience the Bruins winning the cup?
I mean, it was pretty crazy because the past decade, we got Patriots wins, Celtics wins, Red Sox wins, Bruins wins.
Yeah.
We were spoiled, and I'm definitely very grateful. Because the previous years, like the '90s and stuff, we weren't, on top of the game. So it was definitely cool to see all this. And obviously, we have some teams rebuilding, some teams are still doing great, but to experience what we experienced, and from 2010 to 2020 was fucking legendary, literally legendary. You know what I mean?
Now, does it make it tough that those years were probably the years that you were touring the heaviest too?
No, because I think it. I mean, obviously, I think it kind of made it fun, because I remember Mikey would always be on tour watching the games on his tablet, or what was that you use all the time, Mikey? Your tablet?
Oh yeah.
To watch the game, yeah. He would use the tablet to watch, or check on scores, because by that time I don't think they actually played the streaming on the.
Yeah.
But he could check it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool because it would give us something to do. And if we're touring with the One Years, we're beefing about Philly versus fucking Boston, and it kind of gave us yo, did you see the fucking game? Or let's get the bar next door, watch the game together, before we go on stage, or whatever the situation was. I think it made it easier to follow at that time, because it's exciting and a topic and something to to do.
Yeah. So I guess with touring, and this is a question that we just love to hear about. Were you ever able to have the planets align where you were able to catch the Bruins on the road?
So I know Mikey and Marky and Jackie, I think, went to several, because Marky and Mikey specifically are big Red Sox fans. And I know that they got to go to a couple different stadiums. I think in Chicago, Florida. Where did you guys go? Chicago, Florida?
Yeah, we were on tour with Transit, and it was opening day at the Astros home opener at Fenway Park. So me and PJ got tickets off some people, and we got to see the seventh inning.
I think I remember that. But yes, so yeah, they definitely got to do some cool shit. Yeah, I got to. I mean, this is kind of gonna take it to a whole different world, but that's how my brain works. But as far as soccer goes, I got to experience my first UK football match. Chelsea versus Tottenham, and that was a fucking experience.
Oh,
that was fucking. I also got to see a rugby, football Aussie style. It's kind of like rugby in Australia. So
that's awesome.
I got to see some cool shit on the road. I on tour I haven't seen other sports teams, but I've seen other sports teams in other cities and stuff. But on tour in Australia and England, doing those two things were undeniably some of the coolest experiences of my touring careers, for sure.
Hell yeah. So I guess to stay on the topic of hockey, your other passion project is Idle Hand Collective. I know that you guys have done a few NHL All-Star games where some of you guys have gone out and cut some of the stars' hair before the red carpet and such. So what was your involvement in that?
Yeah, so basically Idle Hand Collective is myself kind of on the music side of things. And then one of my partners, Alex, who plays in the Gaslight Anthem and is also an amazing barber in New Jersey. He is kind of our dude who does kind of in between the music and the barber world. And then we have Eric Zaitz, one of my best friends, who owns about to own 3 shops called Bostonian Barbershop, one in Whitman, one in Boston proper by Fenway Park, and then he's opened a new one in Hanson. He's more of logistics and kind of brand partnerships and stuff like that. But yeah, so basically Alex had a friend that he cuts that had it in for the All-Star game, and I think he cut probably half a dozen of the players before the game and shit, which is fucking dope. They actually had him on the NHL Network for an interview before. Yeah, which is it's just super cool to be able to be involved, with the NHL. We've done some stuff with the MLB and stuff too. So super dope that our company, it's basically we kind of work at festivals, sporting events, cutting hair for the athletes and for the musicians backstage before they hit the stage. So that was a fucking rad experience, and we're stoked to do more work with NHL and MLB.
Hell yeah! So were you lucky enough to actually attend it?
That I wasn't. So the last year I was gonna go, but we had another festival that I had to go there. So at the NHL thing, and I was at the music festival. So sadly, to go, but Eric and Alex have got to go to both of them. So those lucky fucking assholes.
This is ridiculous. This is
Penelope
absolutely
just wants to hang
ridiculous.
out.
This is ridiculous. So just to give you guys a little bit of really? This is what we're gonna do? Okay. So to give you guys a little bit of insight, my fiance and I, we adopted Penelope about 7 or 8 months ago, and it kind of coincided with my fiance ending up like her job kind of changed. She used to travel all the time, and now she's always at home. So when we adopted this puppy, me being out of work all the time, and Amanda being home all the time, developed like a ridiculous like separation anxiety kind of deal. And it just so happens that Amanda is away for a couple of days. She's visiting like her godson back up in New York. So Penelope is just the neediest dog in the history of the universe. So because I wasn't playing with her for the 40 minutes we've been doing this podcast, she decided she's going to now jump on me and paw my face and be a part of the podcast. So
no, it's a pleasure to meet her.
Yeah, she's a good girl for the most part. She's just very, very needy. And every time I hear her jingling, I'm like, oh, what the fuck is she doing? So I don't know. She's doing something crazy, but yeah, going. They say that like when you go on tour, right? Especially like when you go on these like tours where like you're out for 40 days and you're playing 32 shows, like you don't really get a chance to experience being out there, right? Because really all you just see is, I'm in the van, I'm driving, God knows what interstate. We get to the hotel if we're lucky enough to get a hotel, or we get to the Walmart parking lot and just shut eye for a little bit, and then you wake up and like you get breakfast at a Cracker Barrel, and then you're just at the venue. And it's like, did you guys, ever get to find that balance of, even if it wasn't for, to go out and see like sports or anything, like, obviously you got to do it in Europe and Australia, but around the country, did you ever have the opportunity to find that balance to like actually see things or like?
So people definitely think it's all fun and games, which it totally can be.
Yeah.
But it's very tiring. But like, it's not like we can just go do whatever we want. So I always found time to, even whether it was 15 minutes or an hour or a full fucking day, to get the best experience that I could in every city we went to. Me personally.
Awesome.
Unless I'm really drained, every once in a while I'd take like I'm not doing a fucking thing today, whatever. But I always would try to go see a local bar, a brewery, a restaurant, tourist attraction, meet up with my friends. Like I always try to get the best out of anything. And obviously I've always loved partying and getting wild. So like, always trying to find like, where the after party was after the show, or what the cool bar was to check out, or like maybe meet some of the, whoever, like some cool kids at the show were like, yo, fucking come for a drink with us down the road. I'll be like, fuck it, let's go. Like,
sweet.
I'm very spontaneous and like really always wanted to, like, I'm like a young pop. I'm like, yeah, what's cool? Like, what do we do? Like where do we go? Like, I always wanted to see shit. So yeah, I definitely think, I wish I kept a journal. But I definitely, or took more pictures, but I definitely got a great experience of traveling for sure. It's tiring,
awesome.
tiring, exhausting, but I definitely got out of it. Definitely, I got a lot more out of it than most people do.
Yeah, and then the other thing is like, as a vocalist, right? Like, I guess, and the best example of this is, Jimmy from Polar Bear Club. Like you can kind of hear with each record, how it got more and more difficult for him to kind of like keep that voice that like, you kind of got used to on the first couple of records. And by the time the last record came out, he was really like singing and he wasn't like growling as much anymore. So like, as a vocalist, like, did you ever find like that if you like, were out on like a long tour and like you were doing too much like drinking and stuff, like you had to just be like, okay, today I guess I just gotta like drink some fucking tea?
Yeah, I definitely good days and bad days, as far as like, I usually could get through it. But like, there's definitely, when my voice was like tired, like I definitely shut down, like, because my voice is very sensitive, and I have a very low voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk and like to party and get fucking loud and shit. So
yeah,
I don't have like that kind of voice. I have a low voice, so I'm pushing it so hard. It definitely fucked it up. But I feel like overall I kept a good balance on it. Obviously, I was insecure as a singer, being like, fuck, my voice is fucked up today. That was kind of like my thing every day to say. But I got, we got through it, and, with the support of the homies, and obviously Mikey and Marky, have good voices too. So like we, if I was slacking a little bit, I'm like, yo, can you sing this line, or make sure you hit this harmony, and I'm going to back up, whatever. We finessed it.
Love that. Now, I guess I just have kind of a personal question. Wrightsville Beach. What's up with that title? Like, that's my,
exactly. It was written exactly where you thought it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Wrightsville Beach. We were on tour back in the day, maybe our first tour ever, and we partied at Wrightsville Beach. We parked over there and spent the night there, and we just partied on that beach. Had a great time, and it was such a big influence that we ended up writing a great song about our experience there. It was the first and only time we ever were there, but a beautiful memory. Great beach.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been in North Carolina now for almost 6.5 years, and I have not made my way to like the Wilmington area yet. So I'm just gonna go and listen to Wrightsville Beach on Wrightsville Beach.
For sure. So no, that was a cool question. Yep, but it's exactly what you thought.
Beautiful. So I guess I do want to talk about just Rise Records, because you are actually our first artist that was on Rise Records. Like, we have not talked with a Rise Records band. Oh, was
Joe.
Transit was
yeah.
Rise. Okay.
Yeah, we caught Joe.
Okay,
cool.
So
Joe's great, good friend of mine. Good friend of mine.
I guess Rise Records now has Knuckle Puck and like some of like the new and upcoming pop punk bands. Like, do you feel like you guys have like passed the torch off to them, and like were you ever able to play any shows with those up and coming pop punk bands?
Yeah, we definitely played and toured with some of the up and coming bands. That's really hard to say, and like I feel like if I answer the question in the wrong way, it might get taken wrong. But I mean, I definitely think that we're like the second generation of, we had the Saves the Days and the Movie Lives and stuff like that, are like our elders. But I definitely think that we played a big role in that middle generation, for sure. And yeah, I mean, like I love and support all the new generation bands. So I guess if that kind of makes sense in any sort of fashion, like I wouldn't necessarily say that we passed the torch, but like I definitely, think that there's some really cool bands out there that are still doing what's been done before us, and will continue to be done. But I definitely think there's some cool bands that are representing the community well. You know what I mean?
So do you?
I definitely don't think there's bands that grew up in the punk hardcore scene in the era that we did, like some of the pop punk, like some of the bands that we were peers with. I definitely think that there's it doesn't exist, at least to my knowledge, as much as it did back when like us and like Title Fights and the Fireworks and Set Your Goal 4 Year Strong. I think it's definitely a different vibe between the pop punk and hardcore community, which I don't know if can be recreated as it was, but I think there's still some great bands with some great songs and great attitudes.
Now, do you feel like you are still kind of in touch with the like up and coming local scenes and things like that?
Not so much the local scene, but obviously I support some of my friends' younger brothers, kids we grew up with in new bands. But obviously I'm in the management world, so I have a pretty good ear to the ground as far as like what's going on and all like the music industry, as far as like the Hopeless Records and the Rise and all that kind of stuff. Like I have, I'm pretty in tune with everything because I kind of have to be for my job, and also, I'm still in touch with a lot of these people. My friends that I grew up with are managing other artists or booking other artists. So I'm always in conversations with homies and, keeping a good ear.
Yeah, it's Rise is such an interesting label. Like when you look at like what they've done and how they've like developed like a kind of a sound. And like I said, they were in the 2010s, they were scooping up a lot of pop punk artists, but I mean, like, you know, I remember Rise starting with like, what was it? Like Fear Before the March of Flames, and like, and like that band Orange Island, and like some of those other bands. So
yeah, it definitely took a turn over the years, but I feel like a lot of those labels did. Equal Vision, Victory, all those labels definitely, you know, started one way. Once it succeeded, they started expanding the horizon. And so I think it was kind of a thing that all labels did, but, you know, definitely had a nice, interesting collective label. I'm open-minded, and I like everybody to be at the party. I don't like cliques. I never have. I'll hang with the tough guys. I'll hang with the nerds. I'll hang with the job. Hang with the punk rock dudes. I'll hang with the hip hop community. Like, so I always like when, you know, people have a broad horizon instead of just being like, we're only signing 10 pop punk bands and that's it. Like, I don't really want to. That's not really where I fit in personally. So I thought it was really cool, you know, that a lot of those labels were doing some progressive, you know, movement.
Sick. So I you know, you kind of reached over and you pulled out your Motown record, right? And you said you've got the you know, the Glamour Kills split up in there somewhere. So are you a record collector?
I'll show you right now. I don't know if video or audio or whatever, but I'll show you real quick. And then after that, I do gotta eat. I can smell that fucking food and I'm going crazy.
No, it's all good, man. You betcha.
But how do I spin this thing around? Let me see.
Oh,
Is that
there
working?
you go.
There we go. All right.
Yeah, so like that's kind of my, you know, kind of my record collection. Like the whole bottom's full too. But yeah, you know, between, you know, all that stuff, records that, you know, I've collected, been passed down to me, bought at a record store, you know, thrifting or whatever. I think I have a pretty dope ass collection, to be honest.
Hell yeah. So one quick last question, and then we'll go let you chow down on that hop hop, man. Is so in that record collection, just out of curiosity, like what's your most like treasured record that you have in there? Like even if it's not necessarily like the most exclusive variant in the world, but like that record in that whole collection that you'd say means the most to you.
It's a good question. I mean, I'm gonna have to say, just obviously for like just it being like very personal, would be our friend Timmy released a record on, I think it was the only record that he released, Willow Tree Records, kind of like an inside a lost for words joke from like, you know, our prehistoric days, but he did a test press of it for one of our shows and made us all our own personal. He gave us a test press with his own. Each of us got our own personal note in it, and I actually have it upstairs framed still. But that one was really cool, and he actually made like a Reach the Sky ripoff one for when we played with Reach the Sky.
Oh, sick!
He made a Saves the Day ripoff one when we did the Great American Hardcore Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think that one is just like, it's like my, you know, my art as far. So that was really cool. But I say otherwise, I'm a big Nas fan. So one of my favorite records is It Was Written.
Okay.
So that is one of my favorites. I just bought Boys to Men. I have it right here. I just bought this, which was my favorite CD ever when I was a kid. But I got the Boys to Men Legacy. I haven't opened it yet.
Sick.
But,
all right.
Got all the greatest hits. But yeah, Boys to Men played a big role of my, like, you know, making me want to sing and stuff. So
nice.
I would say like the Lost for Words one, Nas Was Written. This maybe as far as hardcore goes, I love the band Killing the Dream. I have some of their records, which I love Jake Bannon from Converge's art.
Yeah.
So I think he does some dope shit. So that's really cool. I got an In My Eyes vinyl, which is dope. Old Boston hardcore band. Yeah, man, I got some cool shit. Honestly, I haven't really shifted through it in a while. But I definitely have some cool goodies. As long as also like hand me downs of like old Motown records and
there you go.
You know, classic rock records that, you know, it's just cool because you can just feel like the old energy in there, like the worn and torn and you know, things like that. So
I was like that Cat Stevens record you had, right, Mikey?
Love Cat Stevens.
But yeah, eventually I got to get back through that though. That's a cool question though.
Hell yeah, man. So, listen, man, we appreciate you hanging with us for a little bit and chatting a little bit of hockey and music. So, just out of curiosity, like I said, I know that you were saying that A Loss for Words is kind of dormant, but like, do you have anything musically going on, or is it really just kind of idle hands that you're focusing your time into right now?
Well, so I have Reclaim Music Group, which is my management company.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I got a bunch of cool artists like Lizzie Farrell, who's on Pure Noise, a band called Merci on Rise Records, a band called The Villa on Velocity Records.
Cool.
I got an R&B singer named Nikki Hayes. I'm working with a hip hop group from San Antonio, Texas called Grammy Kids. I got Set It Off, obviously, on Fearless Records.
Dope.
A band called Cemetery Sun, who we have a label that we're going to be signing to. I can't say just yet, but that's a fucking big one.
Cool.
Super stoked on that. I mean, we just have, I have a dope, group of people that I'm working with. I got some great friends. Another band that I have that I'm super stoked on right now is a band called Shallow Pools. They're an all-female group from Boston. They're going to do some big things. Sorry if I'm missing anything right now off the top of my head, but check out Reclaim Music Group. I just started this sounds fucking dorky before you end, but I just started a TikTok, and I'm going to be doing like some R&B covers, and me and Mikey and maybe Marky probably do some Lost for Words acoustic stuff. I don't really give a I'm not trying to be like a TikToker or anything. Yeah. But I think it's just a good platform to just like record a quick clip and post it.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to be doing some stuff like that, and then I think that when this is all said and done, the COVID-19 thing, I'm sure Lost for Words will do like it's our 10th anniversary of the No Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And we missed our 20th anniversary last year, sadly, because we were going to try to do something there. So I definitely think we'll do something and get so all the homies can come back out and have some cool sing-alongs and stuff. And I think everybody's fucking needed after this shutdown.
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. It's been a rough 2020, but hopefully 2021 is looking up. So again, Maddie, thank you so much for taking the time. I hope you go enjoy your dinner, and hopefully as the NHL season progresses, if we get some Bruins Islanders in the playoffs, maybe we got to have you back on and get some real chirping in. What do you think?
Hey, I'm always down for that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, and best luck with everything, and stay safe.
Appreciate you, brother. You have a good one, man.
Thanks,
All
Matt.
right, take it easy.
Take care.
Bye-bye.